Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. It is Charlotte Kornegay coming live to you guys with another Forever Friends Academy Relationship Live chat. How are you guys doing this Thursday evening? I'm always happy because when I'm on with you guys on Thursday, it means we are closer to Friday. So I'm always happy. So as per usual, hopefully I can get some of you beautiful folks on with me tonight, and we can get into a really good conversation. So as per usual, I'm going to introduce myself just in case I have some new folks on with me tonight, which I always would love, whether you're catching it live in real time as I'm on with you now, or whether you're catching the replay. Welcome. If you're new, if you cross my path, my page, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram or where all the other places that I am on, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you took a moment to stop by, pop in, listen for a little bit. And even if you hopefully stay on tonight and talk with me, I hope that you can hear something that can inspire you, motivate you, feed your heart, your mind, and your soul. That's my goal in doing these live chats and starting, coming back on live with you guys. So my name is Sharla Kornegay. I'm an author, a recording artist, founder of Interask Coaching and Forever Friends Academy, which is my online group coaching. It's subscription based. And basically when I'm on stage, I go by Sharla K. As a artist, what you can get from me is basically love and inspiration. I have the same goal with my coaching, along with my music, which is to just hopefully be an advocate of love and let people know that they don't have to lose hope, and provide principles, whether it comes through via my lyrics, my song lyrics, or whether it's someone coming into me for coaching, coming to me for private coaching or group coaching, or maybe listening to the podcast now, that you'll get something that you can apply to your relationships and you don't have to feel like navigating the space of relationships, which is such a fundamental part of our life, that you don't feel lost. Hey, Jay, how are you? Happy New Year. Oh, my goodness. Protagonist, how are you? Wow. He says, Happy New Year, everyone. I can't stay but showing love. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Protagonist used to come on here with me all the time when I used to come on live, and I always was happy to have him because he, kept the conversation going and asked a lot of, a lot of questions that allowed us to dive into the topic. So I'm so glad that you came by, stopped by a little bit with me. I appreciate you. All right. So for those who are new, the way on Thursdays, I come on live Thursdays and Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the way that I kind of structure the show is it's a Q&A, but it's not your average Q&A. It is basically, the Q stands for me presenting a quote in the beginning, presenting a question, and hopefully by the end of the broadcast, we can answer that question. So that's usually the setup. And on Sundays, we do something that I think is fun, which is I usually call it Relationship Sunday Scenarios. And I basically usually come up with a little made up scenario, relationship scenario that I come up with, and then those who are on with me, we get to be the therapist and the coach for tonight, for that night, and help the couple kind of work out whatever their issue is. And I think it's a real creative and fun way to kind of work out complex relationship issues, because you know how it is. I'm sure you've been someone's friend and they've come to you and asked you for advice, and it just seems to just flow, right? I know for me. It seems to just flow right out of you, right? Like you just know what the answer is when it comes to, helping somebody else in their life and giving them some sage advice. But when it is in your, right, when the ball is in your park and you are emotionally invested, emotionally attached, the easier it is to be emotionally compromised and have your mind and your heart become clouded and not necessarily have sound judgment when it comes to it. So I usually present that because I think it's a really fun and creative way to kind of look at relationship issues that would probably come up in most of our relationships, and then we can kind of assess how they can work it out. And then if for some reason, right, you come across an issue like that, then you can kind of, hopefully, that's what I'm hoping it will do. You can kind of recall that, I was on that live with Sharla and I remember this, and therefore you'd be able to apply some of the things. So that's the rundown of the show. While I'm waiting to see if I get some more of you guys on with me before I present tonight's quote and tonight's question, I'll just recap what we were talking about on the last episode. And I really enjoyed the conversation that I was having with you guys on Sunday, this past Sunday. And so what I presented this past Sunday is that there are four approaches that we approach kind of figuring out, getting to know someone, figuring out who the one is, right? Or I guess vetting potential partners. That's always a question that I get from a lot of people, as well as I'm sure just anybody navigating who is single is navigating the dating space. That's something that you're heavily thinking about normatively. So I presented 4 ways that people choose the people that they choose to engage with or identify as somebody who's a potential partner. And the first level was that you can choose someone based on your preferences, right? Many of us, some people have extensive lists, some people have short lists, but usually most of us have something that we already are coming before we even interact with another person or a potential partner. We have it already in our mind, preferences that we like, whether it's someone who's tall, whether it's somebody who's built a certain way, whether it's someone who has a certain amount of finances. The list goes on, right? And so most of us come to relationships with those already there before we even engage with the person. And it's hard because sometimes, depending on the person, they're very invested in those preferences and very tethered to them, and almost to the point that they're married to those preferences, so that if someone, I'll put it this way, if God presents someone that is the opposite of those preferences, sometimes they can miss out on somebody who would be actually just right for them because those preferences are so prevalent. And I definitely think that's what's going on in culture now, modern day culture, especially if you're paying attention to like the relationship space, any relationship experts or podcasts that you listen to. You have all this talk about hypergamy and, women wanting to date up and just a lot of things going on right now. So I think there are a lot of people who are navigating the space right now that are based on preferences and not necessarily something that would hold a lot of weight in the relationship. Hey, E, don't you dare say sing, okay? I hope you got my message. I'm planning to incorporate me singing, as I'm coming on here. So be patient. It's coming. I've been seeing your consistent, statements in the comments. So I definitely am going to incorporate that. I'm just trying to figure out how, but I definitely want to merge the two. So, but thank you for always popping in with me. I appreciate you. So preferences was the first level that I talked about. And I said, we can have them. It's okay. But it is most definitely not something that will hold weight or what else? I guess I should say it like this, that will maintain a relationship for a long time, right? It's not something that is foundational, that is strong enough and sturdy enough to build the foundation of a relationship on. So that was the first one, preferences. Then a tier up from that would be based on personality, right? Many of us, we talk about, many of us have unique personalities. Many of us have things that are rigid about us, certain things that we like to do certain things in a certain way. And so many people will always talk about, trying to choose someone to be with based on their personality, based on their compatibility with that person. Right now, especially since many people are dating and going on dating apps to find their person, that's definitely the big science behind it, right? Is trying to find people, their matches, and that's based on how similar those people are. But I stated in my last episode that compatibility is great, but when we're talking about growing in relationships, especially relationships between a man and a woman, it's the complementary. It's the complementary that really causes harmony in the relationship. So two people can be similar, they can have compatible qualities, and still not get on the same page, right? And you're like, why? How can that possibly be? It's because there are certain characteristics that we have within ourselves. And hey, it's another one, Sparks. I'm glad you came in tonight. Hey, Rafi, beautiful Rafi. Thank you for tuning in with me, guys. You guys haven't missed much. I'm just recapping from my last episode about the 4 ways that people approach kind of dating or navigating, trying to find people who could be potential partners with them. So we started with preferences. Now we're on personality based on compatibility. So as I was saying, there are people who can be compatible, but doesn't necessarily mean that because they have similar personality traits that they can be able to kind of walk in the same direction. And that is often because, it's hard. It's hard. I wrote in my book that, when it comes to relationships, it's like the two people want to be in the same book, right? There's sometimes where we're in our relationship where we feel like, hopefully, if you're not in the same book, then we come see me. Come see me or come see another, coach or therapist, because we got to make sure we're in the same book to even get to the same page or on the same paragraph or the same sentence, which would be ideal. It's hard to get people to go in the same direction, and oftentimes it's because there's compatibility, but when we're talking about relationships that elevate to marriage, there's also order and structure. And that order is necessary, even if you just look out on teams, basketball team, football team, etc. You have people who are running the point. You have people who are leading, and then you have certain people who are following in certain seasons. And so you can have two people who are similar characteristics or personality traits, but when it comes to having to make pivotal moves, that both of them will not want to let go of their selfish will to do what's best for the collective, right? So we can have similar personality traits, but have selfishness at the core or stubbornness at the core that doesn't allow for us to get in the same book, get on the same page, get in the same paragraph, and hopefully the same sentence, right? So we can move accordingly. So the third tier after that is character, right? And in my book, I'm going to say the quote that that I have for you guys tonight, which the quote is basically, it states that a relationship is more of a character than it is a title that you hold, right? A relationship is more of a character than a title that you hold. So that's the quote for tonight. You guys let me know if you feel like that's truthful and if it's something that you can kind of put at the center of your relationship to facilitate growth. And so I said, character, trying to navigate the space of getting to know people who could be potential partners for you, when you're approaching it not from just your preferences, not from just trying to find someone whose personality matches yours, but you're looking at the character, that's different. And I explained that when you're looking at someone's character, it's you looking at their mental well-being and their moral ethics and their moral fiber. That's different. That's different from someone's just personality. Someone could be charming. Someone could be, what's another? There's many different things, have a cheery personality and things like that. But when you're talking about character, those are the two distinctive areas that you're really looking at. And I love character because it goes into the last one that I presented everyone who was on that podcast that night, which was looking at nature, right? And nature is a little bit different from character because I think it's more inclusive. We're not just only, and the best way I can give this example that hopefully it'll make you understand it more is that, I'm sure you heard people say, love is an action word, and you want to make sure that the person's words line up with their actions, right? So that would be like character, right? You want, if it's a disciplined person, if it's a person who what they say, they follow through with, etc. Nature is higher than that because nature focuses on not only a person's innate, intrinsic qualities, but also the essential qualities. So the difference between the first statement that I made about love being an action word and someone's words lining up with their actions, the step higher in focusing on nature would be someone saying, okay, I'm looking for your words and your actions to line up with the principles of God or the things that are essential in life. You know what I'm saying in that way. So, for instance, if you're talking to someone and you realize that they're highlighting maybe finances over health, you know, they're not really looking at maybe life in the way of prioritizing, right? Or things that should be first things first. And those are the things you kind of want to listen out for. Like, does this person really understand the essentials of life or the things that are the most important? I was just telling someone a story today, which I think I might have said on the last podcast, but it stands out to me so much. I always tell this story because I never forget it, that I was on Clubhouse when I used to go on a lot. And I remember this woman came into my room and she joined our conversation and she told me that she had just, recently gone through a divorce and that in her relationship, she felt stifled because she just loved to work. She loved entrepreneurship. She was in corporate America and she just really thrived in that way. But she had children and her husband wanted her to kind of stay at home with the children, at least for a little while, for them, so they can be in her presence. It was best to take care of them than the mother, but she felt like he just couldn't understand. And it put a lot of pressure on their marriage, and she felt like he was kind of in the wrong for not understanding. And it was to the point that she told me the story of her giving birth. I don't remember if it was her first child, but it was one of her children that she was giving birth to, and she had waited till the last minute. So by the time she got to the hospital, she was ready to give birth, and so she gave birth. And then, literally right after she gave birth, they called her from her office and wanted her to have a meeting. And she was ready to take the phone and have this meeting because that's how much she loved, working and what she was doing. And it was only her mother who said, no, you cannot. Don't you dare. You cannot take this phone call right now because you just had a child and you're going to miss this moment, And even with her telling me this story, she still was really telling me the story to kind of justify how much her husband should have understand how invested she was in what her expertise was and her profession. And I just remember listening to her and telling her that I don't care how well or developed or great you are at the position that you hold, that company will replace you in a heartbeat. You are expendable to them, no matter how great you are. But your family now, that's a different thing. You are not expendable to your family. And, I just began to tell her that, I totally understand her feeling of feeling like she's thriving in this place. But if you can kind of jump out of yourself and look at it holistically as far as what should have been prioritized, is your family, because no matter how much you elevate in that business, they we've yeah, I'm sure you've had friends who've experienced it, or maybe you've experienced it yourself, that you've done great at your job or the place of your profession, and then maybe all of a sudden people get laid off, or all of a sudden the business has to downsize, or for their own gain. If you've been an employee there for a long time and you're making a certain amount of money and they want to save some of that money, they'll have you train somebody else and then have that person take your position. What I'm saying is that no matter the positions that we hold out into society, we don't want to forget that the family is the backbone that creates society. It creates community. That then creates society. And either there's going to be whole people or broken people that are going to govern the society that we live in. So therefore, regardless of what you're feeling, essentially and truthfully, what should be poured in principally is that. And that's cross culture. That's not something that is just in one country and not in the other. Family is the backbone of every society that you can think of. So those were the things that we talked about, of being able to have a better discerning eye, because people, they always say, well, you just never know. Like, people, they show up with their representatives, and therefore, how will you ever know, if this person is who they're saying they are? And I think one way you can know is you can say, you know what, I do have my preferences, but let me put those aside. I do have what I believe my personality traits are, and I think that I'd best get along with someone who's similar to that personality, and kind of put those aside, and then a focus on, okay, what is my character though, right? Because showing up as a representative means that you're putting on a certain personality there, and that there's something, right, a different type of characteristics that is not being shown, because maybe fear of being vulnerable, maybe fear of, if you show yourself to someone all the way, that they're going to reject you. Myriad of reasons why maybe people do that. But if you are a person who's navigating that space and say, okay, I'm going to focus on character, starting first with me, my character development, so I can kind of understand me and the deep parts of who I am, so that I can not necessarily look for someone who is equal to me, but someone who can complement who I am, because there are certain things that I'm going to miss about myself. And so I need people who can see in different angles or different spaces that maybe I'm missing. And I know that harmony is created by the unequal parts that are working together. So let me look for that. And then when I hear them speak, let me go even beyond that, and not necessarily just calculate only that their words line up with their actions, but that do their words line up with, fundamental principles, godly principles. That's a greater way to kind of look at it. So that's what we talked about in the last session. So I tried to summarize it for you. Hey, Emily. Hi, Princess. Thank you guys for joining me. You haven't really missed much. I was just kind of going over my last live. So I just finished kind of recapping that. And tonight's session, I already put out the quote for tonight, which is a relationship is more of a character than a position and a title that you hold. So feel free, anyone who wants to, let me know if you believe you agree with that quote. And the question that I want to ask you guys is that do you feel that a title, and maybe you can think about yourself and your processes of how you've kind of developed relationships, do you feel that a title putting a title on a relationship gives you more security? Do you feel that putting a title on a relationship gives you more security and certainty in the relationship? So that's a question tonight. And I got another, I think it's another one. Spark said no. I think he's saying no to the question that I said, because I believe he said agreed to the quote. I think. Let me know if I'm stating that right. So that is the question for tonight, guys. And I have a video that I want to show you guys. It is tied into this topic that I'm bringing up so that we can kind of dive into it and talk about it. I believe he said yes, and I think he said yes because what I said was right. That he agrees with the quote, but, does not agree that putting a title on a relationship gives you more security and certainty. And I like that because he's the first one to answer it, and he's a man. So I think when this conversation comes up, you'll hear a lot of women feel like men will say what he just said, which is that no, the title is not going to give more security and certainty in the relationship. Whereas a lot of times women sometimes are in situations, more often than not, more often than men, will be in situations where they're asking the question like, okay, what are we? Or what are we doing? Right? Seeking for some kind of clear direction or clear commitment in the relationship. And oftentimes they'll say that's what we're met with someone, with the man saying, the title is not going to give you that. So I got one person's answer. So let me know if anybody else has thoughts on that. Of course, when I'm going to play the video, but as you guys might be typing, you might be thinking about it. So as you're thinking about it, if you do answer the question, I will make sure that I take a moment and read your feedback and your response. So this clip that I'm going to play for you guys is from a podcast that I like. You guys I recommend you check them out. I think I enjoy the content so far that I've watched. So this clip comes from their podcast, and it's called Hardly Initiated. I don't remember all of their whole names. I don't want to butcher it, but I think the first names of both of them is Ryan and Tyshawn. And they basically have a great platform to talk about relationships, and they'll have all different type of guests come on, from people who are in marriages, from coaches, from therapists, things like that. And this is a clip from someone who was on their podcast talking about this particular topic. So I'm going to play it for you guys. And let me just read the statement before I do that. It's another one. Sparks says, a tie is for the people watching. A title, I believe he says. A title is for the people watching you. It's not really for, but there's no wrong answer. Okay, so he feels like the title is not really for the people in the relationship, but it is for the people who are watching the relationship. And I guess that would make sense, right? To kind of, let the people know how to, navigate approaching those people, right? And maybe setting automatic boundaries, like such if you see somebody who's married man, married woman, right? It's supposed to set certain boundaries. We know that's not always the case or the truth, that happens. And quite often it's usually for some funny reason, it's the opposite. A lot of times when you find somebody who you find is married, then you have all these people who are just magnetically attracted to them. So, but I totally understand what you're saying. So I'm going to play this video for you guys, and I am going to play it, and I would love to know your thoughts on it before I chime in on it. So I'm going to play the video. It's not long. It's, I think, maybe possibly under a minute or a minute. So, and I'm hoping, let me just make sure you guys will hear it well. Let me Turn it up. All right.
The what are we? The what are we is right where you want to be when you want to go ahead and have what you want and take what you want to take.
Absolutely.
What are we? That's the dreaded question.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, if you never apply any definitiveness to it, it continues to be a question again and again and again. It's like you cannot escape it.
The person who does not want to commit to you will use the question against you to shame you. They'll say, what does it matter? Titles don't matter. Oh, well, tell your boss that. Tell your boss that titles don't matter. Okay?
Wow.
Damn.
Yeah, because see, your title determines your value. Your title determines what I should expect of you. Or this is something that is not even on your level to receive. It determines where you will sit in an office. Your titles determine a lot of things. And so when people try to dismiss a title, they are saying, I don't want to own you.
All right. So that's the video, folks. That's the video. What are your thoughts on that snippet? What are your thoughts on that snippet? What do you guys think? Princess says, wow. Just wow. I know. I felt she articulated her points very well. And that's why I wanted to present it to you guys, because I said, this is a perfect, thinking about what I wanted to present to you guys tonight, I said, I think that's a perfect clip that I just happened to just see on my homepage as I was perusing through YouTube. Okay, so Princess says she agrees with what she's saying. She agrees with what the guest said about, and you agree with all of it. All of it? Did anything, was like, I kind of agree with that, but don't agree with that? Or you just like in totality, what she's saying is just spot on. It is the truth. And Emily says that's a good point. So, okay, so I have two ladies in here that agree with what she said. Okay, yeah, Emily agrees. So I have the two women in here agreeing so far. Let me see if I'm missing any other comments coming in. Make sure I'm getting everybody. Okay, so the ladies agree. Okay, so there was a point in there that Princess said, I'm not too sure if I agree with that one, where she says, for me, it doesn't define my value. And I love that you said that. I love that you said that, because that was one of the things that I was just like, okay, no, I don't agree with that. But she said, I agree with everything else she said. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. So I bring this up because I have a book. I've written 2 books, but the last book, I can't say the latest because it's been a while. When did I come out with my relationship book? I think it was 2019. 2019, I think. No more than 2020. So in my book, as well as the many different coaching, whether it's through the podcast or group coaching, I had put in my book, and that quote that you heard comes from my book, that a relationship is a character more than it is a position or a title. And usually when I say statements like that, I think they get into really controversial conversations, because, and mind you, I said, let me give a little background as to why I say that. I'm saying this as someone who has been converted, y'all, right? Meaning that when I was in my teens, I was heavy, and when I say heavy, I mean very heavy on, from the gate. And I think I was like this because I hated, and hate is such a strong word, but I really feel like whatever was close enough, I strongly disliked, I'll say that. I strongly disliked the whole talking phase, like, okay, we're talking. And I guess that meant we're in a phase where we're getting to know each other. And so that was, the terminology, like we're talking. And I just didn't get it. And I was like, okay, I don't want it to be more confusing for me. that was just my whole thing. This is already a confusing process. And for me, because I didn't grow up with my father, I had no male presence, right, from my family, immediate family, or even extended family to show me what it's supposed to look like in a healthy way of me as a young woman relating to a man. So I automatically was like, okay, I'm going to be at a disadvantage because I'm only around women. And the women that I'm around are having, not such a great time relating and being able to navigate the space of relationships. So in my mind, when I was heavy on the title, it was too, right? All of the things really that she just said, which was, okay, this title is, I know that you're invested, you are committed. And for me, though, I wasn't like forcing that on someone. I just would express to them, like, if they came to me and they approached me and they said, I really like to, get to know you, Sharla, and things like that. And I'm like, that's fine. However, if you do want to get to know me, what I would like, or how I proceed, is that we're going to put a title. And back then it was boyfriend and girlfriend, right? We're going to be boyfriend and girlfriend. If you're saying you want to get to know me and you want to take me off of other people trying to get to know me, just in my head, I'm being very real with y'all. This is kind of how I move. If we don't do that, then you're telling me then you're not just trying to get to know me. And that means that other people who are trying to would like the chance of getting to know me, that they have a right to still do that, right? So I would tell them that, and in the in the people that wanted to deal with me, they would be like, okay, that's what it is. But I wasn't trying to force that on them. I would just tell them this is my process, and I don't really, for me, do it any other way, right? Because this is already a confusing process for me, and I don't want to add on any unnecessary harm or hurt to myself. So it needs to be a clear-headed direction for me, right? And so I was headstrong that way until I met my husband. Until I met my husband, and we were just friends. And when we started hanging out, we just kind of magnetically just was drawn to each other. We were magnetically kind of drawn to each other, and we were just hanging out tough and things like that. And I think it wasn't something that we planned out, but I think it's just something that kind of snuck up on us that, okay, wow, there might be a little bit something here more than just, that can elevate beyond friendship. And I remember him telling me that, I don't want to put a title on this. And I just kind of looked at him like, well, I don't know. I don't know what you mean. You know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about? Because I was so headstrong on the titles. And he said, because the first thing as a woman, you think, okay, is this person trying to run game? Are they just trying to? Because sometimes you would find that. I would look out and observe in the relationships, and that most definitely is what was happening for a lot of relationships where, some men were saying that. But he began to explain to me that, no, I know I'm a marriage-minded man, and I'm looking for a wife specifically. But I'm looking for a wife who can, flow with God with me. I'm looking for a woman who can naturally harmonize with me. And what I've seen when I look out is that people put titles on the relationships, and they use those titles to dictate how, right? And just like the video, what she said, the title dictates what I can expect from you, right? And I'm a person that if I have what I think to be something that's a sound judgment or a sound process, if somebody brings to me a greater process that seems to be better, I will yield, right? I will, I'm going to ask you some questions, because I'm just a firm believer that, listen, godly principles, fundamental principles, they're not afraid to be tested. So we can question them from many different angles, and it's still going to hold true. So I'll question it and I will ask questions and see if your answers stay, have a certain type of continuity to it. And when we had that discussion, he most definitely had a lot of continuity and truth in what he was saying. And so I was just like, oh my goodness, I had to think about myself first. And I was like, whoa, he's talking about me, because I didn't know what else to put there, right? I didn't have the luxury of having a father who would sit down and tell me, okay, this is the process, or even if he's not vocalizing the process because he's in the household, I can understand the dynamic, right? But when he presented that to me, I said, oh my gosh, one, that's me. And I know what he's saying is the truth, because the relationships that I had before him, they failed. So you're right in that way. And then I jumped out of myself and then I looked right across the board at people in my family, friends, and I'm like, oh my goodness, all the relationships are either failing, meaning they have broken apart, or they're like having issues and are slowly falling, right? The relationship is slowly falling to a point. And so I said, that makes so much sense, right? So I know he wasn't BSing, because he was telling me what he's really looking for, right? And he's providing me, saying that this process that I have seen how people do this has more of a percentage rate of failure, because they put a heavy weight on the title, and the title was what they trusted, or the title is what brought them stability or certainty, and they didn't really look at the character of the people that they were engaging with, nor did they look at the character of the relationship. So he said, our relationship is already developing a certain character. I don't want to derail it by putting this fake title on it. I want us to have something that's truly, really solid, based on how we really innately, intrinsically, and organically are. And so I was like, this makes a lot of sense. This makes a lot of sense. And so I provide that in my book, and I talk to people about it often, and it's hard, don't get me wrong, when he and we were, mind you, he was he still is, but he was a sage soul back then, because he's telling me this at the age of 17, right? So he's super young. He's super young to be thinking in that vein. But that is what his focus was on. He wasn't focusing on a lot of other things. I guess he knew what he wanted very early on, And mind you, in the process of it, after him telling me that and us kind of navigating that space and seeing where our friendship would take us, he told me, like, within like 3 or no more than 4 months of our friendship, he said, I'm gonna marry you. I know that I'm gonna marry you. And I kind of just looked at him like like a deer in headlights, because I had my own things, right? I had my own process that I had to go through. So many things, because I didn't grow up with my parents. So I had a lot of healing, a lot of recovering, a lot of things to to process, And he paid no attention to me. He just said that, and then he kept moving, because I think I said to him, like, oh, we'll see if we last like 2 years. But that was my fear and my really not lack of kind of hope in relationships, because I just didn't see healthy ones around me, So my thing was like, if I'm in a relationship, I'm just going to be in there to grow and to elevate, but I'm not going to put like this, I'm not going to be so result driven. And it worked well for me, because the people who were around me could see that I wasn't just selfishly driven to get what I wanted, but that I could enjoy each moment and kind of grow through the process. So it did the opposite for me, where people wanted, they stated they wanted to marry me because of that. At least that's how I kind of saw it. So let me say some things, because it's another one Swartz is saying. He said, so you don't like courting. Courting. Oh, you mean like when I think the only time that I've really thought about someone courting is kind of like where you are in my understanding of courting, it's the people they know they want to get married. And so they're going through like counseling and things like that. And they are taking stuff off the table so that they're not getting emotionally maybe distracted in that way. Is that what you're saying? It's another one, Sparks. And he said, facts, truth to something else. And then he said, your husband is a smart man. Yeah, he definitely is. And he said, it's about the way you're raised. Yeah. And he said, the beginning process of a relationship. No, I wouldn't say that I don't like courting in that way, if you're saying as far as us going out doing activities and things like that. I don't think that when you don't put a title on it that makes you not do certain activities and things like that. I just think that because even in this video, right, when she states, oh, when people say titles don't matter, and don't get me wrong, I think when she's pointing it out that there are some men, maybe possibly women, when I see it occur, it's more on the other end. It's usually the woman wanting to see what the relationship is and the man saying necessarily that the titles don't matter, but maybe I'm sure there's some outliers there where the women might be saying that to the man. It's not usually the normative case. So I agree with her that there are some men who might use that as a tool, right, to kind of manipulate the situation. However, when she's talking about see if that title doesn't matter to your boss, you had to interview. When you went on that job, you had to get vetted. You had to provide certain qualities, right? Maybe whether it was on just your resume or your CV, and then they had to see you in person so that they can kind of discern you. So the qualities are the prerequisite before you get the position and the title. In the way that she's kind of explaining in the video, the title is what is going to dictate what I expect from you. And when you give me a title, that's not what it does. A title does not warrant for me to have certain expectations from you for you to give me what my will is from you. And I'll put it like this, all of you guys who are listening, who's on now, there are people, family members who have been in your life, friends, maybe people who have been in positions even before you can take them in your life, right? And you didn't, what I'm saying is like, unless there's processes that we don't know. Some people believe you choose your parents, et cetera, right? I don't know that dimension. That's we'll find it out, when we meet our maker. So your parents, your aunties, your uncles, there are people who are in your life that are already in a certain position because you're born into that family. But there are people, even when they have that quote unquote title, who cannot engage with you. They do not have the capacity to show up. They do not have the capacity to love you in the way, or nurture you or be in your life in a certain way, even though they have that position and that title. So in my book, I say, because, right, I can't pull the rug under people and say, you got to take the title away without giving something else, right? Another process. And that's what I appreciated what my husband gave me when we were friends, was another process that would be more tried and true, right? And so Princess says, right. And then she says, when you go into a relationship with expectations, that is a setup for disappointment. Most definitely, right? And it's hard because, like I said, we all come in with our preferences. We all have things that we believe are great about our personality. And so we look for people who kind of mirror that and reflect that in us. And we don't know, we already go into the relationship married to those things. So it's very hard for now when a person is brought into your space to really genuinely get to know them, because you already too tied and invested and attached to, right, the expectations that you already have. And so that's why I kind of appreciated it. Made sense holistically on all levels when my husband presented in the way that he did. And that's one of the main reasons why even though she articulated brilliantly on that post, but I do think that it will cause people more issues in relationships in the way that she broke it down. Because for one, it's what Princess said, it does not most definitely establish my value. The title does not establish my value. Most definitely not. And like I said, before the position is given, like I said, in the job, it's because you showed some qualities, you showed evidence, you showed fruit, right? Whether it's you're going in the corporate world and you need to have a certain degree, or you have to have maybe a certain amount of work experience in the industry that you're in, that makes those people feel like, okay, you will be a valuable asset to the company. So they didn't give you the title without you having to show fruit first of what your discipline and your character has rendered you. And I think oftentimes when there are issues where people end up in situationships or things where relationships are not clear and people are taking 2 step forwards and 2 step back and there's confusion and things like that, it's most definitely more so that they were heavily thinking or either wanting a title that maybe was not a position that they needed to be in, or giving people titles and positions that they don't need to be in. They have not, with their character, shown you that's. I'll put it like this. I put it in my book. I say that there are people who want to love, there are people who choose to love, and there are people who have the capacity to love. Right? So when you understand those 3 things, and the way you break down is there are people who want to love. They like the idea of it. They like the idea of relationships. Whatever it is, the fantasy of it, that, okay, you're going to meet this person and, the Disney story, you're going to ride off into sunset together, and they want to love, but there's no real grounding. It's just what they think that relationship is going to feed to them, And then there are people who choose to love, right? That means that because there are people who want to love, but they still won't, right? Whether it's, I've been hurt, so I have a wall. I'm not putting that wall down for anybody. I'm not even going to enter this space because I don't want to get hurt again, right? So, even if they are in love with the idea of it, they might not move, or people who just have a fanciful type of idea about relationships. So it's faint. It's like a vapor in the wind when they do, try to go into that space or even try to establish a relationship. And then there are people who choose to love, who say, I'm gonna have the courage, I'm gonna take the risk, I'm gonna go out there and choose love. But because they don't have, right, the understanding or the skill sets, unfortunately they don't get everything that they can out of the process or the relationship, or they might find themselves in reoccurring cycles or getting hurt and acquiring and compounding unnecessary hurt in the situation. And then there are people who have the capacity to love. And the way we know that is that, okay, those people, the only way we test capacity is that those people can stand the test of time and change. Those people can drop, maybe some of those expectations, maybe some of those things that aren't really what relationships are about. And then they seek, the truthful aspects of the process, and they can kind of drop their own selfishness. They can die to their own ego. They can fully allow the process to transform them, and they can grow greater with each other as they go through the storms and tests of life. And so when you think of it that way, then it don't matter what title you put on that person, they're going to show up. They're with or without the title, can you show up? With or without the title, are you being who you truly authentically are. Now, don't get me wrong, right? You're not going to work for a job, right, where there has been no negotiation. They haven't decided to pay you. You know what I mean? Unless, don't get me wrong, people volunteer. I'm not talking about a volunteer situation where you have offered to go and help a company out because you are inspired by maybe something that they're doing, their mission, their initiative, etc., and you're volunteering for a time. You are very clear, and cognitive of what you're doing, that you are graciously giving your time and your energy to something greater, right? But if you are going for a position for a company, right, you know that there's going to be a process of, like I said, you are going to have to be able to display the fruit of your character and that you are qualified, to hold this position. And you're not going to invest the time and energy until the things have been negotiated and there is a reciprocal exchange. So if I'm not saying for you to do away with the title, but then, invest your time and energy and do things that clearly are going to blur the lines for you in that relationship, because we are now, right, doing certain things or functioning in the relationship where that's going to clearly compromise you emotionally, right? So that could be intimacy, that could be a different type of things that is going to cause, it's going to cause for you to have some distortion when it comes to having a clear head and clear mind about it. So all of that is comes into play. But that also would be character, right? The character and the way you're functioning in that relationship is what is going to determine the results that you get from that, out of that relationship, what you reap from that relationship. It's not the title that you put on it that does that. That doesn't render that for you. And we know it because we see it all throughout society. Yeah, you're supposed to have a ring on. That means if you're married, you're supposed to be a faithful person. You're supposed to be faithful to just your mate. You're not supposed to, right? There's supposed to be certain boundaries that are there, but we know that if the person does not have a moral fiber and character to be able to do that, or the capacity to do that, then whether you put a ring on that finger or not, that person is going to have to be able to face that challenge and develop the character and the nature that is necessary for them to hold onto their own moral conviction, right? Or the conviction that they get from God the Father to say, okay, no, this is the life that I'm choosing to live. And I am more rewarded, or I feel more content in my soul going in this direction, knowing that I have done nothing, right, to dishonor the vow that I've made, right? So that's what it is, whether it's on that, on the other end of marriage and deep of a spectrum, or we're just kind of cultivating a friendship and trying to figure out what's if we're suitable for each other, So like I said, I love how she articulated her things, but I do not agree with what she said. I don't agree with what she said because of the simple fact that the title does not equate to your value, and the title that you put on a relationship does not dictate what you should expect from a person. And then I definitely don't agree with the last thing she said, where it's like, if somebody doesn't want to put a title on the relationship, then they don't want to own you. I'm like, what in the world? Maybe she meant like they don't want to claim you. I don't know. But listen, God, Almighty God, does not take the choice away from us, right? He has given, that's the equal playing field for everyone here. That is the fairness that God has bestowed on all of humanity, that whether you come from riches, whether you come from poverty, no matter whether you're a man or a woman, we all have choice. And those choices, depending on where you come from or what you were birthed into. If it's dysfunction or poverty, you hear stories of people who are the rose that grew through concrete, right? That's a metaphor of growing through hard situations. And it's like, how can that person grow to those heights and be in same spaces of people who, let's say, quote unquote, were born with the silver spoon in their mouth, right? That's the fairness that God lays out for all of us here. And those choices that we make, and if we desire to want to know, right, some of those fundamental truths and principles of God, then, and we can apply them to our life, then it's a playing ground for all of us. So I think when you go into a relationship, even if it's all the way up to a marriage, you don't own that person. You are freely offering up parts of yourself to that person. You have chosen to walk in this lifetime with them and journey. But to say you own, no. If that was the case, we wouldn't have that as much divorce rate as we as we have. If you owned the person and they couldn't leave, that's clearly not the truth, right? So, yeah, no, you are choosing to invest the most priceless parts of our life, the most priceless currency that you can here, your time, your energy, your faith, right? To choose to walk with this person in life. And that should never be taken for granted. That should never be thought of like I own you, so you gotta be here. That is most definitely a great quick route to a divorce or to a failing relationship. If you think of it in that way, you should be thinking of it as this person is a gift. They are giving me their time and their energy, regardless if they have taken me as their husband or their wife. There are many people who choose to walk away, and I've seen it happen over and over and time again. So I am going to proceed with it graciously, humbly, and with the utmost gratitude, and cherish this relationship, cherish this person, because I know that every day they're getting up and choosing to be here because I don't own them and they don't own me. So that's why I wholeheartedly disagree with her argument, because I felt like even though they were great points and she articulated it, what I think very eloquently, I felt the answers were more egoic and from more of a selfish point of view and a selfish way to build. We don't build, and just for the fact that, like I said, the title doesn't come first when you're at a job. The qualities, your character has to precede you for that job to take you on. And what about the fact that maybe if you are qualified to, you got all the accolades, all the achievements, and that job and that corporation can still say, I don't think you're the best fit here, and I think that's okay. I think that's also what we do in relationships, that we meet people and it's like, well, I am qualified, I am valuable, and so you should accept me. You should embrace me. And the truth is that no, they don't have to. And I think many of us probably have experience where you meet two good people who are just good in nature, but they're not good for each other. They're not good for each other. And that's okay. That's okay. You just go on to find your tribe, your people, the people who feel like what you're offering to them is valuable and priceless. And that's okay. So welcome, DJ. Thank you for joining the podcast, and my coach, Jean. Thank you, guys. It's another one. Spark says it's a partnership. The 3 T's: time, treasure, and talent. Yeah, for sure, right? For sure, absolutely. So that's definitely my thoughts on that video. And in no way is it to because we have to have these, without her video, we can't have these conversations. So I'm not bringing it up. Anytime I bring up videos to kind of glean from, it's not to, talk bad about the person who's presenting it. It's just presenting a different angle so that we can kind of look at it and see, like I said, God's truth is not afraid to be tested, period, and you'll be able to look at it from many different angles, and the truth of the matter will still reign supreme in this. So that's the only reason why I brought it up, because I think I was one of those people. Well, I know I was one of those people until I was presented with a greater way, a more truthful way, a way that was less defensively protective. That's how I can best explain it for me. What I used it for was to defensively protect myself. And I say oftentimes in this podcast that love is offensive. It's not defensive, because no matter how love shows up, and it can show up in different forms, right? Those who study love, at least from a biblical perspective, we know the different loves way that, whether it's eros or filio or agape, it's many different ways, right? That God's love is expressed in a lifetime, but it is always coming from the source of God, right? So there's no match to God. So love is always offensive, not like you're offending someone. I mean, like, when you're playing a game and you're on offense and you have the ability to score because you're on offense. That's what I mean. I mean that there's no match to it. There's nothing that can be equivalent to it. So I know that when I was using that same type of mentality that I showed you guys in the video, it was most definitely just to kind of build up a way that I can protect myself from people who potentially wanted to hurt me. And don't get me wrong, you can defend yourself and use calculative measures for a good way. You know what I mean? A good way, because when I stated that to the people who wanted to get to know me, some of them complied, and others were like, well, then I can't really date you. And sometimes they would come up to me and just say it outright, like, you are the type of girl or the woman that I would have to settle down with, and I'm not ready to do that right now. They'll say it outright. And I was like, okay, well, thank you. You know what I mean? Like, what can I do? I can't be mad at that. That person was honest and open with me, and they just let me know what it is, and I can't be mad at that. I wasn't mad at that at all. I appreciate it. It was like, okay, I'm glad that you didn't waste my time and that you acknowledge the type of woman that you feel like I am. Is not to be played around with, but someone that you would have to truly invest time with. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, because that's what I believe that I am too, So I think a part of me stating that, like I said, wasn't me trying to force it on them, but it was just, this is my nature, this is my character, and this is probably just the best way that I know right now, until I find a greater way. And that's exactly what happened when my husband presented me a greater way. It was like, oh, I totally get that, and the whole name of my academy, this podcast, kind of started from that. That's why I call it Forever Friends, not, that you're going to be like in a friend zone for the rest of your life. That's not what it means. It just means that, beyond, I guess, friendship is a type of relationship that is so expansive. It goes beyond someone being your husband, someone beyond being your spouse. I don't know if you still stay married for those of you who believe in God and believe in heaven, there is nowhere really biblically that I've seen so far that there's still going to be marriage, but maybe you could still have friendships, there. So it's just a term that I use to say that, I'm going to honor the fact that you were brought into my life, whatever, all the different choices, all the different steps, all the different alignment that had to come into really perfect alignment for me to meet you and for you to be in my life. That goes beyond it. to me, it accounts for before you got here, while you're here with me, and beyond, you know. I remember telling some of the people in my Forever Friends Academy membership, I said, when I think of my husband, I don't think of husband first. I think child of God first. And then I think he's a soul, right? He's had life experiences happen to him way before I came into his life, right? And that he's had to process and things like that, you know. So like if he's going through something, that's what I think of, you know. For me not to take it personal, you know, because we all go through our things based on, you know, our upbringing, as it's another one Spark said. And if you if you can't get out of yourself, you'll take it personal what that other person is going through towards you. So the fact that I think of him, of what he is primarily first, before he's my husband, he's a child of God. He's a soul that has had processes way before I came into his life. And then after that, he's a friend, because I want to think of it as, listen, I want the best for you in life, you know, regardless of what I think the best for you is, you know. So as a friend, that's what I want, you know. That's really in if there is a mission for me, you know, as your wife or beyond your wife, as a friend, is that I want what God has best for you, you know what I mean. And then his title of who he has, the position that he has freely taken, then I think of that, you know. And it helps because we all go through different stages in life. We go through different seasons. And for us to not get so emotionally compromised that we are offended by the process that our partners have to go through, it's been a way that I think is helpful, not only for me, but of course the clients, and hopefully it'll be helpful for you guys on with me right now, for you to kind of you know, use that as a process when you're thinking about your partner, as well as yourself. When you're down on yourself and you feel like you haven't met your own expectations of who you're supposed to be for, oh my gosh, the many people that you have to be it for, you know, whether you're a father, a mother, a auntie, a uncle, you know, husband, wife. It's so many positions, you know, that graciously God has made us stewards over. And that title that we put on, right, we will weigh us down because of our own expectations that we'll attach to it. Forget someone else, you know. So that process goes for that as well. Hey, Pej, I didn't even see you come in here. How are you, Pej? I don't know if you're still on. Thank you for popping in. And it's another one. Spark says, a friendship is one of the most important that people lose or never have. Absolutely. In a relationship, I completely wholeheartedly agree, you know, 1,000% with you. And I think that's why I look at it like that, because so many people, you know, go through divorces or relationship breakups happen because they're just no longer friends with each other. And now, unfortunately, in modern day culture, because of the whole friend zone thing, people don't even like value friendship like that anymore. They don't even want to hear it. So unfortunately, it's not even looked at as the gem that it is, you know? So yeah, but thank you guys. Great conversation, great feedback from you guys. And I really appreciate the video from Hardly Initiated, because it was like the perfect way to kind of present what I wanted to talk to you guys tonight. So just to kind of recap, and of course, I always want to leave space for you guys to ask any questions that you have. So it doesn't have to be based on tonight's conversation that I presented to you. If you just have a relationship question that, you know, you want answered, I'll try to answer it to the best of my ability. Yeah, just let me know. So I'll recap, and if I have a question, I'll definitely, you guys can type it, and I'll try to answer it to the best of my ability. And other than that, we'll wrap it up for tonight's discussion. So tonight we talked about titles in relationships and what a relationship really is. At the top of the podcast, I basically presented a quote that said, a relationship is more of a character than a title or position that you hold. And I played a video from a wonderful podcast called Hardly Initiated. Definitely check them out. It's definitely worth listening to, at least in my opinion. I think they're doing great things there with the many different guests that they bring on. So we talked about that tonight. And my question was, do you feel like when you put a title in relationships, do you think it brings you certainty and stability in a relationship? Then I played the video and then we kind of talked about it. And what I kind of summarized was that I don't believe that titles bring certainty or stability in relationship. When you go to apply for a position or a job, you have to present certain qualities. You do. You have to show evidence. You have to show evidence of what your character and your nature has rendered you in your life experience, what you've been able to accomplish or acquire to show that you would be a valuable asset to that company or that corporation. And I don't believe that the way that we navigate the relationship space is too different from that. So the title doesn't come first. The title doesn't come first, and it's because it doesn't really hold that much weight. You're given the title because of the character that you display and the consistency that you display. So that's what we talked about. And we talked about there are people who want to love, choose to love, and people who have the capacity to love. And I think instead of moving forward with just thinking, okay, if we slap a title on this bad boy, then that means I know that you are going to function in a certain way. You are going to navigate this relationship in a certain way. The title is not going to dictate the terms of the relationship. It really isn't. It is that person's character. It is that person's nature. It is what that person is willing to allow to be transformed by the relationship that they're in that is going to do that. So, thank you, Kendra. Thank you for popping in. I appreciate you. So if we, instead of thinking about the title, we can kind of focus on that. Number one, kind of reflect on yourself. Like, where am I in this space? And believe it or not, if you're married, this also goes for the married folks, because just like the other podcasts, I said people choose people based on their preferences, their personality, their character, or nature. We have to choose our partner every day, right? So you're still choosing every day. And sometimes people will forget, even in a marital situation, they will be more forward with, well, this is my preference, this is what I want, or be mad that the person's personality is not identical to theirs, but that their personality is actually something that's complementing them, that they need to be somewhat opposite in that way so that they can kind of point out your blind spots that you're not going to see. Right. And so we'll forget that, and we'll forget about focusing on the character or focusing on the nature and focusing on, okay, what are the essentials of what we need to be focusing on in the relationship for us to really find, fulfillment and growth in it. So I don't think that if you're married, that this doesn't apply to you. I think it does apply to all of us, to remind us, because sometimes you can slap a title on something and then you can get lazy, like what I call a lazy lover, right? You could become a lazy lover. It's like, okay, well, the title's here. I made you my husband, or I made you, my wife. And now, okay, I did it. Okay, well, we still have to that's the beginning. That's not the end, right? That's what they tell you. Any good counselor or coach will tell you, on that wedding day, that's the beginning of the work. It's not the end, right? So we still, the title, again, another example of where the title is not what's going to dictate the terms or lay out the expectations, but it is really just maybe possibly I guess maybe something that you can kind of use to maybe allow you to rest in your own convictions because you vowed, it's more of what you vowed that you said that you wanted to be, or the position that you stepped into, a reminder of your responsibility. You can use it like that. And I guess that would be a better way to use it rather than thinking that it's what is going to set the boundaries and the expectations and the terms. More so like, okay, well, I vowed and I said this. So I want to be a person who, holds my word to be true. And I want to serve in the best way in this position that I've been granted to be in. So that's more of a humble kind of having humility when it comes to titles. So maybe it'll be used greatly in that way. But as far as the way that was presented on that podcast, I don't think presenting it in that way or approaching it in that way is going to render the most optimal experiences in relationships. So I don't see any questions yet. Let me just make sure I'm not missing them. Let me check. Nope, I don't see on the different platforms that I'm on. So as always, thank you guys for rocking out with me. Thank you for being with me and giving me all the absolutely beautiful feedback that you gave. There is no live unless I'm on here with you guys and you're talking back to me. So I appreciate it. That's the best part about coming on is being able to conversate with you guys. So I appreciate it. And I hope that I provided some kind of value for you guys tonight, for you to kind of reflect on and think about, and hopefully presented some questions and quotes that'll facilitate conversations that you can have with people in your close proximity and bounce it off of them and see what they think, So I appreciate you guys. I will be back on Sunday night, 8 p.m. Oh, wait. I just realized it's a Super Bowl, right? I don't know how many of you guys are going to be on with me. And I wait. Let me let me curb that. I might not be on for Sunday. I will let you guys know. Because I just realized that it's Super Bowl Sunday and I also was invited to engagement. So I will let you guys know when I'm on next and definitely give you guys a heads up. So I appreciate it. But be safe. Any of you guys watching the Super Bowl, enjoy. And yeah, until next time, thank you. It's another one, Sparks. Thank you. You always provide such great feedback, such great gems. I appreciate you as well. Have a wonderful night, a restful night, hopefully. And I will talk to you guys soon on the other side. If I'm not on this Sunday, I definitely will be on next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right. All right. As always, until next time, always remember to live to love freely. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.